Internet users, and welcome to my series on building your home network. In this episode, we're going to be building a router firewall using a open source free firewall called Pfsense that is owned by Netgate but is completely free for non-commercial use. It runs on FreeBSD. The hardware for this should be a very low-end computer. Something made this century, though, would be nice, and just 2 gigabytes of RAM should be fine. The only other requirement is that it needs to have at least 2 network interfaces. One that's going to go to your cable modem, DSL, fiber optic modem, and the other one's going to go to your switch. So with that being said, I want to show you what my hardware looks like. And then after that, we'll get into the download and install of Pfsense. So here is my Pfsense firewall in my home network. It's just a standard desktop computer. Right here you can see a dual network card that I've installed, and I have disabled the onboard network because it was only 100 megabit, and out of my cable modem and out of my switch are 1 gigabit connections. So I put in a 1 gigabit dual network card, which can be found on Amazon.com. They're $20 to $30. Very cheap, very easy to install, and supported by Pfsense. Right there you can see 1 USB connection which goes to my APC backup UPS, and it gets notified when the UPS detects a power outage, and the firewall sends out notifications to me through email, and that's basically it. So it's a very simple setup. The top network cable goes to the cable modem, the bottom network cable is going up to my switch. And so with that, let's go ahead and download and install Pfsense. Okay, so we need to download Pfsense, burn it to a USB stick, and then we can install it on our hardware. So we go to the pfsense.org website. Pfsense is actually owned by Netgate, which makes a lot of different network appliances. There's a paid version which entitles you to support. You can also get virtual appliances, enterprise solutions. In our case, we are going to get the open source community download. So we'll click on download. We go to the latest stable version. You can actually get the source code and you get the release notes. So this is version 2.4.4-P1. We want the 64-bit, and the installer, we're going to use the USB memstick installer with the VGA. Click download. And it looks like it'll take a couple minutes, so I will speed this up. Okay, we're done. So let's go to our downloads, and here is the file. You notice that it's in a .gz format, which is compressed by algorithm that Windows out of the box doesn't know. So we want to use any number of programs to extract it. I have 7-zip on this computer, so I'm going to right click on this file and use 7-zip and tell it to extract here. And this will take very quickly. And we get the IMG file. So we have our IMG file, which we need to burn to our USB stick. The software I like to use to burn to USB sticks is called Rufus. So I'm going to switch back to the browser, and I have the Rufus website up. We'll scroll down and get the Rufus portable. It's only 1 megabyte, so very quick to download. And we're done. So let's go back to our download, and we see Rufus. We'll run it. And we're not going to check for updates. And here's our 8 gigabyte USB stick. And now we need to select our image. And we want to select the IMG, and we'll click open, and everything's good. So there are no options. We'll just hit start. Yes, all data will be destroyed. That's fine. Hit OK, and we'll let it do its thing. I'll speed everything up. Okay, we're done. We can close this. As you can see, we now have an F drive that has our, and a D drive for that matter, that has our USB image. So we will now eject the USB. Alright, now we'll take the USB out. We'll switch over to our firewall hardware and we will boot up from that. Okay, we've booted up our computer with the USB stick and we're now at the Pfsense install. I stopped the auto boot so we could look at the screen. You have the standard boot multi-user option 1, which is what we're going to do, but you have some rescue options in case you need to get into the machine. So it might be advisable to keep the USB stick around. For example, you can boot single user, check out kernel options, and there are some other boot options. In our case, we're just going to go ahead and hit enter and boot on up. Okay, so now we have a text installer. This is the copyright info, so we'll go ahead and hit accept or press enter on the keyboard. And we have our options. So we have an install, we have a rescue shell where you can get into a root shell to grab files if you need to, and you can also recover the configuration if you also need to do that. Of course, we're just going to do an install, so I'll hit enter. It's asking for the key map, which defaults to US. We'll take that, hit enter. How do we want to partition? There you can do manual disk setup, you can partition by hand, and you can also do two automated ones, one using UFS file system, the other one using ZFS. I'm just going to take the UFS, so it works fine for me. I'm going to hit enter. It is now doing the install, and we'll speed up the time machine. Okay, the install is finished. It wants to ask if we want to open up a shell and make any kind of system modifications, which in this case we could. And I'm going to go ahead and select yes so we can see what that looks like. Basically, you just have you're rooted in. We can look around. We can get to the config files. Do whatever we need to. We don't need to do anything, so I'm just going to type exit here and let it reboot. And we're rebooting. Okay, we've rebooted and we're now back into the boot screen. I stopped it, otherwise it would auto boot, just so you can see what it looks like. It looks just like the one off the USB stick. We'll go ahead and hit enter to continue our boot. And now we're configuring our network cards. In this case, the WAN interface, it was going out trying to grab an IP address. It's now starting up DNS. This normally takes a couple seconds. And we're done. So as you can see from the screen, our WAN, which is EM0, device EM0, it got an IP address from the network 192.168.5.57. It also had a DHCP6 address, and the device EM1, which is our LAN, is serving out 192.168.1.1 on a /24 subnet, which basically gives us IP addresses from 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.254. The firewall itself is on 1.1. Now this is a default, so we can go in and change this to suit whatever LAN we want. We can do that by hitting option 2, which I'll show you real quick. We want to configure the LAN, so we'll hit 2. And we can enter in a new IPv4 address. So let's say we want 192.168.100.1. Well, actually, let's not do .1. Let's say we want to put our gateway, our router, on 254. We'll put it at the other end. And then it's asking for our net mask, and we're going to do 24, though we could use whatever we want. There's many IP calculators out there that can help you figure out what subnet you want, depending on how many IP addresses you need. For a home network, however, I think 253 host IP addresses is more than enough. So we will put in 24 here. And now it's asking for the upstream gateway, or the next router up. For a LAN, there is no next router up, so we just hit enter here. And it's asking for IPv6. In this case, I'm just going to hit enter for none. And it's asking, do we want to enable DHCP? And this is almost always going to be yes, unless you have another DHCP server on your network. But we're going to use our Pfsense here to do DHCP, DNS, and a whole bunch of other stuff for us. So I'm going to say yes, and this will be automatically configured based on the IP address information we just entered in. But we need to give it a range. So let's say we want to go with 192.168.100, and we want to start with 100. And then we'll give the end address 192.168.100.200. So that will give us 100 IP addresses that DHCP will serve for us. And it's asking, do we want to revert to HTTP as the web configurator protocol? We'll say yes. We actually haven't changed that, so that does nothing. It is now making its changes. And as you can see, now the IP address is 192.168.100.254/24. And we can get to the GUI interface by opening up a browser and going to that IP address right there. And that concludes the install of Pfsense. In the next video, we'll fire up the GUI on our Windows machine. Once we get it on this network, we'll go in and we'll take a look around. We'll update. We'll make some other configuration changes, and we will look at DHCP. We'll look at DNS and some other options, log files, how to get stats on the network, basic operations of Pfsense. So until then, if you like what you see here, please click like, subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video. And I will see you again in the next video. Thanks.